Hi, PerspectaWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Tuesday, December 15th. The biggest winter storm in many years is coming to visit the eastern part of the nation Wednesday night, early Thursday time frame. Many areas will see some significant snowfall. Other areas, a significant ice buildup. Strong winds will also accompany this particular storm, and that leads to the possibility for some power outages. A lot to talk about over the next few minutes. Let's start off with a total snowfall map from last night's 0Z run of the European model. Now, take these numbers with a bit of a grain of salt, as it also includes sleet accumulation of ice just kind of thrown into these total snowfall maps, so they're boosted somewhat by that. And sleet indeed will be an important factor, especially across the DC metro region, all the way up to southern part of Pennsylvania. There certainly can be some sleet, freezing rain involved with this particular system. But a couple of main points I want to make. First of all, Pennsylvania, northern half of New Jersey, all the way to New York City, all signs point to a significant snowstorm out of this. Again, there can be some mixing of sleet and freezing rain into southern Pennsylvania, certainly the Philadelphia metro region. A second point I want to make, there will be a sharp gradient in terms of total snowfall amounts. Just take a look at the difference to the far northern western suburbs of DC and Philadelphia, for example, as compared with the downtown urban areas. A big change in total snowfall amounts, for example, from Rockville, Maryland versus Waldorf, Maryland, or in the Philadelphia metro region. Pottstown, Schwenksville, certainly much more significant snowfall than, let's say, South Philadelphia or Cherry Hill, New Jersey. Not so much of a sharp gradient across New York City. I'm thinking maybe 10 to 15 inches throughout the New York City metro region. By the way, I have some early estimates of snowfall amounts on the Perspecta Weather website for DC, Philadelphia, New York City. But that's another main point I want to make here. Another point, places like coastal New Jersey, southern half of Delmarva Peninsula, all the way into southeastern Virginia, primarily a rain event. Not much snowfall anticipated in that part of the Mid-Atlantic region. We still have relatively warm sea surface temperature. In fact, the ocean temperature is still 60 plus degrees, not too far off the southern tip of the Delmarva Peninsula. And for a while, there will be an onshore component to the low-level wind flow, raising the chances for a changeover to sleet and freezing rain, especially south of the Mason-Dixon line. But even into the southern part of Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, for example, I do expect a mixture for a period of time. And of course, any kind of mixed precipitation inhibits or reduces the total snowfall accumulations, and that will indeed happen in places like Philadelphia and especially down across the DC metro region. The DC metro region itself has a pretty decent chance of some serious ice buildup, especially just north and west of the district. Temperatures will be hard pressed to rise above freezing or anywhere in the I-95 corridor. Certainly north and west of the big cities, I do not expect a rise above the freezing mark during this upcoming storm. Perhaps a sweet spot shown here, anywhere from areas northwest of DC, northern Maryland, up across central, southeastern, south central Pennsylvania, and extending all the way into the New York City metro region, northern half of New Jersey, and all the way really to the Massachusetts coastline. Unlike the prior winter storm, places in northern New England, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine will have not much of an impact from this midweek major winter storm. Mid-Atlantic and parts of the northeast U.S. will be severely impacted from Wednesday into the early hours of Thursday. Well, before we go to the 0Z run of the NAM model from last night, one more map to show from the European model. This is actually a wind gust map from the European model run of last night with the maximum wind gust, the peak in the wind gust. And this is going to be a significant factor for this midweek major winter storm. Look at some of these wind gusts, 65 miles per hour right along the central New Jersey coastline. near 60 miles per hour across the east central or southeastern part of Pennsylvania. That combined with some heavy rainfall, and you mix in some ice, sleet, freezing rain, and you have unfortunately, you have the possibility of some power outages all the way to 40 plus miles per hour back inland, places like Washington, D.C. So this is just one thing I wanted to point out. In addition to the significant snow and ice, we have to worry about the strong winds for this particular storm system, especially late Wednesday night, early Thursday time frame. Well, those prior two maps, the total snowfall map and the peak wind gust map, were from Weather Bell Analytics. Now we're looking at the NAM model forecast maps available on tropicaltidbits.com. This is a NOAA model. I'm looking at the 0Z model run last night. The first thing I want to look at are the low-level temperatures throughout this storm. This is from the 0Z run of the NAM model, beginning here with tomorrow morning. This is Wednesday morning. The main area I want to emphasize here is look at this line right here. This is the freezing line at the ground level, more specifically the 2-meter line right here. And temperatures, thanks in large part to that tremendous high pressure system up across southeastern Canada that we've emphasized over the past several days, low-level temperatures will have a very, very difficult time rising above freezing during this upcoming event, even into the District of Columbia. Maybe 32, 33 degrees for highs later tomorrow. Certainly, I do not expect it to get above freezing during the storm, during the precipitation in places like Philadelphia. Below freezing throughout this event here, New York City. And we'll walk through on an hourly basis the forecast of the 2-meter temperatures from last night's NAM model. And this is that freezing line. And this is important because warmer air may come in aloft, especially with that onshore flow of air, and especially south of the Mason-Dixon line, causing a changeover of the initial burst of snow in places like D.C. to sleet and freezing rain. But with the warmer air aloft and the at or below freezing temperatures at the surface, that is a recipe for an ice buildup. And let's just go forward in an hourly basis here and look at this. This is now by early afternoon, 30 degrees just north of the District of Columbia. By this time it's starting to snow. I expect the snow to begin in the D.C. metro region roughly late morning hours. Philadelphia, early to mid-afternoon. New York City, late afternoon. And the brunt of the storm really will be at the end of the day tomorrow into tomorrow night for the D.C., Philadelphia, New York City corridor. Let's keep moving forward here. And here we have maybe 33 degrees near D.C. That's stretching it. I think it's, again, going to have difficulty getting above freezing. And the problem with that, of course, is a potential ice buildup, especially north and west of the District of Columbia, where there very well will be a period of sleet and freezing rain. Let's move forward here. Notice Philadelphia, New York City, generally at or below freezing during, this is now Wednesday evening, and then it drops again in the overnight hours tomorrow night, way down into the 20s, and finally by Thursday morning, mid-20s, maybe lower 20s, up and down the I-95 corridor region by Thursday morning. So again, very strong, cold, Arctic high pressure anchored up across southeastern part of Canada will keep temperatures at or below freezing for the most part throughout the precipitation time period in this midweek storm. Well, let's now take a look at the vorticity field at 500 millibars. This is the middle part of the atmosphere, and kind of the energy in the upper part of the atmosphere from last night's 0Z NAM model run. I just want to walk through this quickly and point out here, we'll see in a moment here, right in this area, this is a lot of energy in this particular upcoming system, and it really passes overhead tomorrow night. Now we're talking about maybe like midnight tomorrow night, and this, pointing this out because this is really going to be the time period for the brunt of the storm, maybe the heaviest snowfall, maybe mixed precipitation for a while that changes back to snow. And as this passes over, not only will we have kind of the brunt of the storm tomorrow night with the heaviest precipitation, very likely to be some mesoscale banding associated with this storm system, especially tomorrow night during the brunt of the storm, where some areas are getting absolutely pounded with some heavy precipitation, maybe 1 to 2 to even 3 inches of snow in an hour or two during some of these bursts of snow associated with this upper level wave of energy here, very strong, and it takes a while to come on through, and that's why even by late Wednesday night, early Thursday morning, we still have this sitting on top of the Mid-Atlantic region. It's kind of an extended period overnight tomorrow night with a lot of energy aloft. Not only can contribute to mesoscale banding, heavy precipitation bursts, maybe even an outside chance of some thunder snow in some areas associated with this vigorous wave in the upper part of the atmosphere. Well, let's now take a look at the surface forecast maps from the 0Z run of the NAM model. We're starting with the Wednesday morning forecast map, first of all. And of utmost importance, I want to point out a very, very strong high pressure sitting in the southeastern part of Canada. This is a crucial factor in this system. Almost always a requirement for accumulating snow in the I-95 corridors to have cold high anchored to the north across southeastern Canada, for example. And we've talked extensively about the overall pattern that set this up with the negative AO, the negative NAO, specifically the high latitude blocking. And there's even an upper level low off to the northeast here around latitude 50 degrees, longitude 50 degrees west. That is keeping this anchored in. This sends Arctic air down the eastern seaboard on the east side of the Appalachian Mountains in what we call a damming effect. And you kind of see the black lines here represent kind of a kinkiness in the isobar pattern here, the pressure pattern here. And that's the kind of a setup you get when you have strong cold high to the north, Arctic air flowing on the east side of the Appalachian Mountains. One of the things that will be noticeable throughout the day today is a drop in dew point. It was maybe in the lower 20s this morning. That'll actually drop throughout the day as this Arctic air gets more established and better established. And that is really a true sign of Arctic air, is when it dries out. Not only very cold, and again, will struggle to reach the freezing mark during this storm, but dew points will start off today, tomorrow, very low indeed, maybe single digits in some areas, certainly the teens later today into the morning hours. And that'll do a couple of things. First of all, it may delay the onset a little bit, and we're kind of pushing it off a little bit, maybe the late morning hours in D.C., early to mid-afternoon in Philly, and late afternoon in New York City. Part of the reason is even though radar may be showing some snow aloft, it's going to have trouble initially reaching the ground because the air will be so dry with this Arctic air in place. It also will lead to a couple of degrees of a drop at the onset of the precipitation, basically evaporative cooling with this very cold, dry air. That snow will evaporate, and that tends to cool off the low levels of the atmosphere. So you may see snow on radar for a while, but it doesn't reach the ground for a couple of hours. It kind of moisten up the lower levels, and the temperature may drop a couple of degrees at the onset of the precipitation. So let's just move forward here, and we'll point out a couple other things here as we move forward here. Again, this is now snow beginning perhaps mid to late morning hours in D.C., and it'll probably start off as all snow. There certainly is a chance in the D.C. metro region that it quickly changes to a mix of snow and sleet. Could come down hard not too long after it gets underway. We're now into the midday hours here, and that's when the snow moves into the southeastern part of Pennsylvania, maybe early to mid-afternoon. Again, it may be showing snow on radar for a while before that, but it doesn't actually reach the ground, maybe early to mid-afternoon hours. The pink here, or purple, that's the mixture beginning here, sleet and freezing rain. And notice right off the bat here, by this time mid-afternoon, let's say tomorrow, low pressure right here headed towards the southeastern part of Virginia. Let's move forward. Snow moves into the New York City metro region. Some heavy rainfall across the southern half of the Delmarva Peninsula, coastal New Jersey, places like Cape May, southeastern Virginia. Notice this low pressure here. I want to emphasize that it goes north for a while to the Delmarva Peninsula, but then it jogs to the east, and that's been a very persistent forecast trend in the models, and I believe it. It makes sense because of that very, very strong cold high to the north, which is anchored in place. And what this does, if this continued to move north, let's say along the New Jersey coastline, that would continue the period of rain or sleet or freezing rain even farther north into Pennsylvania. But because it only comes up to, let's say here, and we'll see in a moment, and then jogs to the east, that'll limit the time of the mixed precipitation in places like Philadelphia and certainly to the north and west of Philadelphia. And let's move forward another 3 hours here. Notice now it's starting to jump to the east, and we'll just move ahead here. And see, it kind of gets elongated here by the middle part of tomorrow night. So it moves north for a while, and then we'll just go forward again in time, and it kind of jumps to the east. And that will cause a change back to all snow across the DC metro region, and it'll prevent the mixture period from being too long in the Philadelphia metro region. The fact that this storm does not ride up along the Jersey coast, it actually moves north for a while and then jumps to the east. Now let's go back in time. Another thing I want to point out here is this is now middle part of the afternoon tomorrow. Notice the isobar pattern right in here. And this is, we talked about the sea surface temperatures. You have winds in this fashion right here. And again, you may have some 60 plus degrees of sea surface temperatures right in this region. So that warmer air, we've talked about climatology this time of the year, and that's a limiting factor for snow, or inhibiting factor for snow this time of the year, especially coastal sections of New Jersey, Delmarva Peninsula, southeastern Virginia. But again, with this thing, this storm system then jumping to the north and then to the east, that limits the onshore flow time north of the Mason-Dixon line. And at this time here, look at this dark blue here. This is now early tomorrow night, let's say 7 p.m. tomorrow night. Still a mixture in and around D.C. And again, there can be an ice buildup down in that area, but some of this will be heavy snow bands. Again, watch out for small scale, heavy bursts of precipitation in the form of snow or even some heavy sleet and freezing rain, these mesoscale bands. And then as the storm starts to turn to the east, it changes back to all snow in D.C. And where it's a mixture in Philadelphia area for a short period of time, late tomorrow afternoon, early tomorrow night, it'll also change back to snow as this storm starts to pull off to the east here. And finally, kind of winding down by Thursday morning. Certainly can be some residual snow shower activity during the day on Thursday. And again, strong winds. Watch out for the peak wind gusts during this storm. That can cause some power outages, especially along coastal New Jersey. And where in those areas where you get some rain and no snow, coastal southern New Jersey, for example, still have a problem with the possibility of power outage because of potential 50 to 60 mile per hour wind gusts. And again, limited impact here across upper Vermont, upper New Hampshire, and Maine from this storm system. It does send significant snow all the way through Massachusetts, and then it pulls off to the north and east. But again, certainly northern part of Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine will escape from this particular storm system. Very cold weather, but behind it, way below normal for this time of the year. So that's it for now. Stay tuned to PerspectaWeather.com for updates later today. That's it for now. I'm meteorologist